Becky. Becky, but we'll start. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Douglas School Committee meeting for Wednesday, April 7th, 2021. I'm going to open the meeting right at 7. I'm going to do a quick roll call of school committee members.
Kelly Grady, present.
Heather Moore, present.
Julie Mulder, present.
Lisa Brown, present. Hopefully Becky will arrive. We're going to skip over the Pledge of Allegiance, and we do have a student representative from the middle school, Victoria McKelvey. You can go now, Victoria.
My name is Victoria McCauley, and I'm a 7th grader on the Douglas Middle School Student Council. The middle school celebrated the custodial staff the last week of March. Student Council made signs to hang up, and all of the students were encouraged to create cards to show appreciation for all of the hard work the custodians put in, especially this year. They were presented with multiple cards and a basket of goodies to share. This was a small token for all of their efforts. We also want to wish Mr. Dan Staples a happy retirement. It is well deserved, but he will be missed around the school, especially at bus dismissal where he acknowledged students on their way out to the buses. To kick off the start of April, middle school students returned to school on April 5th with a few students remaining remote. Students were welcomed with a cheerful school spirit greeting. Teachers from all grades dressed in Douglas apparel waving banners and signs for returning students. So far, the week's going smoothly. In addition to this news, the Douglas STEM Club currently has applications open for those interested in an after-school STEM-themed enrichment. We can't wait to begin. Up in 8th grade, students are currently working on their generous unit in science. To better understand the process behind genetic information, students are making pipe cleaner and bead oil to represent DNA in a hands-on craft project. As well as this, 8th graders are thrilled to be participating in a competitive math challenge using the IXL platform. Students compete to answer as many questions as possible to create a higher total than other homes. The challenge ends May 1st and appears to be a very close battle. In Miss Walker's 7th grade science class, students are working on an organism development project. Students were able to pick any animal of their given choice and were assigned to investigate behaviors, diets, and habitats. They also got the opportunity to construct an illustration of their animal. Down on the 6th grade floor, the students are delighted to be participating in a new project. Students were assigned to research scientists in order to further learn about the famous contributions being made in the field of science. They practice their presentation skills when informing others of the information learned. Currently, track is soon to be up and running. Students have been encouraged to sign up through Family ID and are looking forward to the spring season. A group of students have started volleyball skills practice after school on Thursdays. Participants are loving it. We wish the best of luck to players. The Student Council is actively planning the upcoming Spirit Week, which will take place next week. We are excited to announce our upcoming raffle in which students will be able to purchase tickets during lunch to win a basket of summer-themed items. Additionally, classes will be planting flower seeds during remediation blocks to welcome in the spring season. Thank you and have a good day.
Thank you, Victoria.
Thank you.
Okay, now we're moving on to public comment and communications. If anybody has any comments or communication, they can raise their hand and use this time. And I think we have the senior class president who wanted to speak, Caitlin Bonin.
You're muted.
I'm so sorry about that. I do that way too much. Good evening. I'm Caitlin. Like she said, I'm senior class president, and I just wanted to get on here and say a quick couple of words of appreciation for Mr. Romano for allowing us to still have a senior prom. With this crazy senior year, we really haven't experienced the full senior experience, and Mr. Romano really stood up for us and made sure that it was possible for us to have a prom. And I just wanted to say thanks from me and the whole senior class and everyone that was at the prom, that it was a great and safe experience and gave us some sort of normalcy. So thank you to Mr. Romano for that.
Thank you, Caitlin. I'm glad it's
Thank you, Caitlin.
one good thing for Douglas being a small town that we could squeeze that in for you guys. Anyone else?
Let me just echo, thank you, Mr. Romano, for ensuring that the senior class had a celebration of some sorts. So kudos to you and your team. Thank you.
And I just want to also say thank you to the staff who also was very supportive of it. You know who you are, and I know a couple of you are on here right now, and I just thank you for supporting these kids. You know, I know this is not easy, and I just thank you for all that you do, because you don't realize how much a lot of this stuff means to the kids, what you do for them. So thank you.
Anyone else for public comment or communication? Seeing none, we'll move on to the budget public hearing, which I would need a motion to open the public hearing. Anyone?
I make a motion that we open the budget hearing tonight. Is that all I have to say?
For FY 2022 budget.
FY 21 to 22, but school year budget.
Motion made by Heather,
Second.
seconded by Kelly. Roll call vote.
Petroniak, aye.
Kelly Grady, aye. Julie Mulder, aye.
Lamore and I.
Lisa Brown, aye. And I believe Dr. Vera is going to start, and he'll stop partway through. If anybody has any questions, you can ask for that part, then he'll do it again at the end.
Certainly. All right, let me just get ready to present. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the budget public hearing. Before I get started, just a few things. One, this copy of this presentation and the complete FY22 budget is available on the website. If people would like to take a look at that and follow along as we present, just know that those materials are available to you. Also, before we start, I just want to thank a few people. First off, the leadership team in helping put this together. This was a process that I said started back in October, really picked up in November, December, and has been full steam since January. So we invested a lot of time and effort, obviously, in putting this together. So I want to thank the leadership team for that. Also, a huge thank you to Courtney Keegan and her team for running these numbers and doing a lot of work behind the scenes. We ran numbers, then we re-ran numbers, then we ran them again, and we did them about 50 times. So thank you to Courtney for all of her hard work putting this together and walking me through the process. Truly appreciate it. I don't think people understand the amount of time she invests in this every year. And then finally, to the school committee, we've presented twice here, and we've also had a couple of budget subcommittee meetings. So just a huge thank you to you for your support throughout this process. So we're going to start with a budget narrative as we dive into this. So first off, we are presenting a fiscally responsible budget based off of the current landscape of education as we know it in the 21-22 school year. What do I mean by that? We're coming out of COVID next year, and we don't know what the gaps in kids are going to look like. We don't know what's coming from the federal government. We don't know what's coming from Beacon Hill or the State House when it comes to changes in education. So the budget that we are presenting is a fiscally responsible budget based off of what we know school is going to look like for next year. I think the community and the taxpayers will be very pleased with what we are presenting. This is essentially a level service budget. I've used that term a couple times, level service. So I just want to define level service versus level funded. So usually schools do two different scenarios. A level funded budget means that what we funded in FY22 in FY20 is the same thing we'd fund in FY21. When you do a level funded budget, it means that you're not adding any services. You're using the same funding that you used the previous year for the following year. Many times you see cuts with that. Level service budget means that the services that students and teachers in the community were used to in FY21, they're going to see in FY22. So we're really not going to see any reduction in services and programming for students. With our current program, this budget meets the needs of students and staff. We're going to talk a little bit in the next slide about FY23, but based off of what we know and what we can control for FY22, the budget that we're presenting meets the needs of our kids and teachers. We received some grant money both from ESSER 2 and ESSER 3. We do have programming in place this summer and for next school year to address learning deficits as a result of COVID. That's grant funded money. It's for next year. It won't be there potentially for these gaps in FY23, but we do have new programming coming in place for this summer and for next year to address learning gaps. This budget does not include new academic programs, which would enhance the educational offerings for students to be competitive with other schools. We're going to talk about that shortly for FY23 and looking ahead. And finally, this budget does not include additional resources, meaning staffing, to maintain our buildings and grounds at adequate levels. We know that we need more custodians and more support staff for our grounds in order to maintain our buildings and our grounds. I don't want people to lose sight that we're cognizant of that, and this budget does not include it. So going forward, what are we looking at? We're going to start some of this next year, but do a lot of it for FY23. So the first thing we talked about is our blueprint for student success. That's our strategic plan going forward. We just finalized it, and I'll be presenting it at the May 7th school committee meeting. We need a plan before we start adding programs. We need to know where we're going before we start adding programs and making major programmatic changes. So what's this blueprint going to highlight? It's going to talk about academic excellence, creating community partnerships, the well-being of all, global citizenship, and promoting a growth mindset. So the decisions we make and the direction we're going in is going to be focused in these 5 areas. We're also going to be looking at putting in place a literacy plan or a literacy initiative for the primary and the elementary schools. We're currently using the Wonders program, and it's a fantastic program. Kids like it, and our teachers like it. But we need to look at taking things to the next level with literacy. Should be of no surprise to anyone that reading and writing is the foundation of a kid's success. And when we invest in early childhood literacy, it helps mitigate problems as kids move throughout the system and throughout grade levels. The more we can put in early literacy, the better our kids are going to be. So what are some things we're looking at? Currently, we use Foundations, which is a phonics program in K and 1. It's actually the Cadillac of phonics programs in school districts. We're looking to see if we can expand that to grades 2 and 3, and then also see how we can bump that up into grades potentially 4 and 5. Phonics, just real quickly without diving too deep into it, is talking about encoding and decoding, which is a student's ability to hear a word and then be able to write it down, and then to be able to see a word and decode all the letters and read all the letters and put the sounds together to form a word. And kids need to do that automatically. It sounds easy, but it's really tricky and it's difficult. You know, one of the examples we use sometimes is if you think of the word one. You hear the word one and you can think of the number, O-N-E, or you can think of the word I won, W-O-N, 2 different words the kids have to be able to decipher. But if you look at the word one and you actually sound it out phonetically, it's pronounced own. So there are a lot of little nuances in the English language, and a good phonics program will help kids get up to speed so they can read and write in a quicker pace. Assessments. We're looking at bringing more assessments in and putting more tools in the hands of teachers to better support students. Things like the BAS, which is a benchmark assessment system, which will help teachers determine a student's literacy level and be able to place them in appropriate textbooks to read. And then finally, getting more resources in the hands of kids. The more books kids can read, the better. The more books kids have that they're excited about, the better. The more books that kids have choice around, it all improves literacy. So that's part of the literacy initiative. We're looking at a new middle school schedule. We should have that finalized in the next few weeks. And again, that's going to allow us to provide more educational opportunities during the school day for our kids. Our elementary school program, school already has an after-school enrichment program. I want to bring that also to the middle school. Having those after-school programs for our middle school kids is important to keep them engaged, to keep them hooked into Douglas, and to potentially even make those connections at the high school. One thing I'm really excited about is Project Lead the Way. Mr. Romano started this work, and we're in the pipeline for the high school. I would love to get us in the pipeline for the middle school. We do have some funding for this. We also are going to a workshop, I believe it is on May 12th, with the 1-8 Foundation that provides grants to schools to get this started. We also have some ASA grant money and potentially some ESSER 3 money to bring this up and running. So what this is really, if you think about it, it's a pre-engineering program. So if you look at the middle school, you're looking at things like design and modeling, automation and robotics, and app creators. So you're looking at small little 10-unit lessons around this. And then this would expand up to the high school where you would have things like engineering, architecture, and aerospace. So really focusing in on that STEM pathway, which brings us to the high school and our pathways programs that Mr. Romano and I have talked about and really excited about seeing this really grow and develop. We have STEM, we have global competency, we have business, and we're adding criminal justice next year. And that's a pathway that kids take predetermined courses, do a capstone project, go out and do community service, and would graduate with a pathway in one of these 4 areas, again, making them a little bit more competitive when they apply to colleges. Our goal in this going forward is to improve the educational experience for our students. It's really going to address, identify areas of need. We're hoping that this mitigates school out choice for students. It reduces our applications to kids applying to BVT, and it makes the town of Douglas and the Douglas Public Schools a destination location for students and families. So I just wanted to set the stage that some of this is going to happen in 22. A lot of it's going to happen in 23. So what's our budget? And this is the slide that you've seen a few times. We've made some adjustments to it. Our FY21 appropriation from the town was $13,793,820. Town manager has said that we could have a 1.5% increase above our FY21 appropriation, which is $206,907, which brings our FY22 town appropriation to just north of $14 million. When we met as a leadership team, the cost to run the Douglas Public Schools next year is $17,536,443. That's the cost to run the school district next year. Again, about $3.5 million above the FY22 town appropriation. So how did we mitigate those gaps? One, we used $2,951,155 in use of grants and revolving funds to offset the budget. And we'll dive into that in the next slide. We also had a net addition reduction in staff and other reductions by going through the budget line item by line item to the amount of $584,561, which brings our budget to the FY22 town appropriation of $14,727, or the 1.5% increase. So what are some budget details to share with you? Then I'll open it up to questions from the community for this part of the public hearing. Chapter 70, which is the money that we get from the state to fund local education, had an increase of $30 per student from last year to this year. So $33,000. We used $2.9 million in revolving accounts to offset the budget. That included school choice, circuit breaker, athletic, music, preschool, fees, and grants. It's important for people to see that this is almost $500,000 more than we spent out of these revolving accounts and grants in FY21. Just as a recap, again, first presentation was to the school committee back on February 3rd. I believe we were a little over 7%. On March 10th, we presented again, and we brought it down to about 4.7% increase. And today we're doing the budget hearing, the public hearing, where we are at the $14,727,000, or the 1.5% increase. Just really want people to understand that we are relying more heavily on school choice tuition revenue and circuit breaker money than we have in previous years. The more we rely on that funding to fund our overall budget, the less flexibility we have going forward to either A, address issues if they come up next year, or B, add programs for kids in the district. So again, this really isn't a sustainable approach, but it's what we have. Going forward, the receipt of COVID grants may help mitigate this to some extent. Again, ESSER 2 and ESSER 3 funding. We'd like to point out that from FY15 to FY22, the average percent increase in the town's appropriation, this includes the override, is 2.1%. That's been the average town appropriation in the past 7 years. Our ability to mitigate sending schools out or BVT is limited. The easiest way to do this is to add educational programs, which I highlighted, and co-curricular activities. But it's also important to know that these programs cost money. So we're walking that fine line in how to do that. And I know people know this. I know there's some new faces here to this public hearing, but it's important for people to understand too that we have limited flexibility within our budget. Just over 85% of our overall operating budget are salaries and longevity. This is for teachers, custodians, administrators, secretaries, paraprofessionals, the entire school department budget. 85% of that is salaries. The remaining 15% go to supplies, utilities, and resources. So it's not like we have this huge pool of money, that 15% that we can pull from to do it. So those are just some budget details. Before I turn it over to Mrs. Keegan, I'd like to open it up to the chair for questions that the community might have about the first part of this presentation.
I have a question.
We were gonna, there's not really a lot of community members here. Let them go first, and then we'll do school committee. We can also do school committee during the consent agenda, so we can hear everything that everybody has to say. So if anyone else that's not on school committee, if not, Julie, you can go anyway.
I'm just looking to see if any hands go up. And I don't see anyone waving frantically at me.
Go ahead, Julie.
All right.
Sorry, it takes me a little while to unmute. Okay, first of all, the best line ever is Douglas is a destination location. I love it.
You like that? Yep. That's what we're going to do.
That's a great goal. The other comment I have, okay, a couple things. Lunch has nothing to do with revenue, correct? I mean, I already know the answer, but just because I know we were getting free lunches and all that, that has nothing to do with anything, right?
Mrs. Keegan, you want to take that?
That has nothing whatsoever to do with this budget.
Okay. I just want to get that out of the way. All right. The next thing is that we're relying heavily on school choice, and that salaries make up 2.10%. Well, salaries make up 85%, but that we're doing that increase of 2.10%. What would 2.10% realistically get us if we didn't do a salary increase next year? Does that make sense, that question?
Can you rephrase it?
So you had commented that there was a 2.1%, I'm sorry, I said that wrong, of a salary increase.
No.
Oh, no.
All right, so I don't think I understood how you were saying that then.
Oh, no, we were just noting that over the past 5 years or 6 years, from 2015 through 22, the average increase in the town appropriation to the schools was an average of 2.1%. Our bottom line appropriation from the town.
The average salary increase
Okay.
of staff have not gone up
No.
2%
Yeah.
per year.
No, it had nothing to do with salaries in any way. The town appropriation.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Any other questions? All right, Mrs. Keegan, I'm going to share the screen and then you're up for the next few slides.
Okay, so this is, what we did is, as Dr. Vieira did indicate, we did provide the, it's a 25-page detailed document on the website. That's actually the line item detail budget. Here on the presentation, we are also providing a summary of the FY22 proposed budget. And district-wide is $2,046,307. And district-wide includes like central office, anything that pertains to the district, all buildings or the entire district, generally speaking. That's an increase of 7.74%. Does anyone have any questions regarding just the district-wide part of the budget? Okay, so I do want to, and just elaborate a little bit more on that. The offsets, as you can see here, are $231,125. Last year it was $64,557. Just one thing to note there on the difference from one year to the next. Primary school, the general fund budget for the primary school after offsets is $1,752,016. That's a 0.70% increase. And I just want to note as well that the FY22 general fund column that you're seeing here, just want to reiterate again that that's after the offsets. The FY22 operating budget indicates the amount that is required to fund that area. And then you have the offsets, and then you come down to the general fund appropriation amount for that area. Does anyone have any questions on primary school?
Courtney, can I just ask you a general question?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Why did you set up this table so that we see the percent increase after the offsets? Because
what we're talking about, this whole entire public hearing is about the general fund appropriation, the appropriation from the town. So that's why we're showing, well, we actually have both. I am showing the amount for the operating budget. Well, actually, I'm showing the FY21 net of offsets. That would have been the general fund appropriation amount. And then the total bottom line appropriation. I'm showing the FY22 operating budget. And then you have the offsets, and then you have to have the general fund appropriation amount, because we have to come down to the town number. We are coming down. I actually should say we are coming down to the 1.5% appropriation amount that we were provided with. Mm-hmm. And also that compares also to the FY21 because it has to be net of offsets.
Okay. I just guess that I want to point out for myself / confirm in a way that if we look at the percent increase column, it can be a little misleading because the actual cost of funding that budget is higher because we are including the offsets in that percentage.
That's correct.
Okay.
Yep, that's correct.
Okay.
And actually, right. And actually, you're right. In the net of offsets, the FY21 amount, the only kind of legal amount that's out there, that's on the books, on the general ledger for the general fund is at 13 million. Certainly FY21 was higher as well because it was net of offsets.
All right, thank you.
Net of offsets. Yep, that's every year. Yep, but good question to clarify that. Does anyone have any questions on primary school, either from the public or the school committee? Okay, and one of the differences there in FY21, the offset amount was $254,977. It's $294,741 this year. So even just a slight increase with regard to that particular area in use of revolving funds. Elementary school, we have general fund request amount of $2,987,073, and that's a decrease of 8.81%. And that is a result of a decrease in para positions, also a decrease in requirements for building maintenance account, and also with regard to the offsets in FY21, it was $333,343, and this year it is $507,512,000, and that includes an increase in circuit breaker, use of circuit breaker at the elementary school. So that's why you're seeing that decrease there. And when I ask if there's any questions too, they not only questions on this particular summary slide, but the budget itself as I'm going through, if anybody thinks of any questions. Does anyone have any questions in elementary school? Okay. For the middle school, the general fund amount is $2,395,514. That is a decrease of 2.76%. And that is in part due to a decrease in paraprofessionals. And also in FY21, the use of revolving funds was $407,604. And this year, it's actually less at $251,133. So a combination of those two things, that's a net effect of minus 2.76% at the middle school. Any questions from anyone on the middle school? Okay. At the high school, the general fund amount is $4,819,817, an increase of 9.16%. Their sped contractual services went up a huge amount, actually. Paras had a small reduction. There was quite a reduction in building repairs due to bleacher repairs being budgeted in FY21. So that's not necessary for 22. That was actually an extraordinary repair being done for that year, kind of on above our normal yearly repairs. And also special ed tuitions went from $986,144 to $1,395,637. So there's a combination of expenditure differences that increased from FY21 to FY22. And we also have to kind of offset that actually. In FY21, the offsets were $1,474,115. And this year it's $1,666,644. So that offsets some of those increases to some extent. I'm kind of giving you the kind of the larger differences and also the differences in offsets from one year to the other as well. Does anyone have any questions on high school? So our total operating school department general fund operating budget is again $14,727,000. We also have, which is voted separately, our transportation budget. And our regular transportation is $954,000, an increase of 12.77%. I want to explain that. So when we had COVID beginning in FY20, part of the agreement with regard to this whole COVID and payment situation was that they would level fund the FY21 at the FY20 rate. So in other words, the company, they did not receive any increase at all from FY20 to 21. So actually that percentage increase is going really from 20 to 22 is what's happening there. But we were level funded for FY21. And then the special education transportation is $588,366, which is actually decreased 7.47%. And with regard to special education, that includes both, that particular line includes both the in-district special ed transportation and also the out-of-district special education. And that can vary from year to year, just from students moving in and out, aging out, or even sometimes possibility of change in placement from one year to another. One might be closer or further away. But the overall transportation budget increase is 4.08%. Does anyone have any questions on the transportation budget? Nothing there? Okay, so that's the budget summary. And this is basically the school choice revolving fund. It's a history trend that I've been keeping, as you can see, for years. I've actually got a bunch of years hidden, but so basically I just want to point out, if we take a look at FY 21, 22, and then going forward into FY 23, actually I can't see it, so I got to get my sheet here. Okay. So basically in FY 21, we budgeted originally $1 million out of school choice to offset the FY 21 budget. And we had an additional expenditures of just $4,000, which is a very, very small amount. And I am projecting a carryover of $450,000, meaning that that's what we don't expect to spend out of the general fund FY 21 budget. So that will carry over. So that amount carries over, the 1.694 million carries over in FY 22, projected carryover balance. And I have estimated receipts and of 708,958, although that definitely remains to be seen. But I am being conservative. And in FY 22, we are using 1.2 million that we originally had put in there on February 3rd, the original budget that we proposed to the school committee. We're using an additional 222,913, bringing us down to $980,800. So that just goes to show that we're, using more, much more is what I'm trying to point out here. So our ending balance is less than what we've seen, as you can see, actually all the way back to 2017. But again, we would not be proposing this if it weren't for what Dr. Vera indicated earlier, that we have received funding, ESSER 2 funding and ESSER 3 funding. And the ESSER 3 funding, the indications are that you can utilize that for FY 23 expenditures, well, 22 actually and 23 expenditures. We also received 2 grants very recently, one in the amount of $49,125. That helped mitigate things to some extent. Some of the things that we originally had in the budget, we actually were able to utilize that grant for this year. And we received another grant it was either 1 or 2 weeks ago, just over $36,000, our FY 21 rural aid grant that must be spent this year as well. And that also allowed us to mitigate things as well. So again, we did have some funding come in very recently that if it weren't for that, we would not be proposing this, but we do feel comfortable with this at this moment in time. The next one is circuit breaker. And that is showing you again a history trend. And just for those who may not be aware, the circuit breaker revolving fund can only be utilized for special education expenditures. And typically we offset special education tuitions from our gross operating budget. And occasionally, if it becomes necessary to hire, say, a one-to-one or an ABA, which is special education positions during the school year, and we don't have other funding, we can utilize this account as well, which we have done at times in the past. In fact, we did it this year. So this year we have an FY 21, we had budgeted $900,000 in the original budget, in the budget that was approved by the school committee. As you can see, we have a great increase in FY 21 at the use of this account, kind of the situation that I just enumerated. So we not only had to hire 2 ABAs, but we also had a move-in, which was a huge amount. And we certainly don't have the ability to go to the town and ask for that. That's what this account is for. So we did utilize that. For FY 22, we are budgeting in this budget that we're proposing this evening, $955,000. That is not an increase from what was proposed on February 3rd to the school committee. And I am being a little bit conservative on the projection for FY 22, but we actually do quite a calculation to try to come up with the revenues. So it should be pretty much in line with what I have there. But I am pointing out that that is getting lower as well. But that being said, because of the move in, the way that special education circuit breaker works is because we've made that expenditure in FY21 and we will be in FY22, it does increase our receipts in the subsequent year as well. So we're taking that into consideration. Does anyone have any questions regarding the circuit breaker account or its use in the budget or anything? Okay. So this slide, and actually Dr. Vera has gone over this quite a bit recently in previous presentations to the school committee. So we just added that in just to remind folks of the decrease in student enrollment. But with all the wonderful things that we're projecting happening going forward, maybe we'll be increasing that. There's a good chance of that. So, and this last slide is basically indicating the operating budget. That's the red bars. And the blue triangles are the Chapter 70 funding, which, as you can see, has been very flat for a great number of years, actually. And then the bottom one is I actually should have said diamond. The triangle is the local funding. So you see that increasing a little bit, as we're going up as well. And that's due to the fact that in some part that the Chapter 70 funding has been fairly level. We do receive just a minimum aid each year, and that's been for a number of years. Does anyone have any questions regarding that, or any other questions regarding the budget?
I have one question, but I'm sorry, my dog's like barking like crazy. So based on those enrollment numbers that you were showing, how they're going down, and then part of the budget is based on the fact that we're going to have school choice money. We're relying a lot on that. Do we project that we think that school choice kids are going to come more into town as we're losing students in Douglas? We think that we're going to have more students come in for school choice to help supplement the budget?
I want to make sure that your question, and I'm very clear in your question, Julie. Now, we did not assume that in our use of the school choice revolving fund, but certainly, and Paul can definitely talk about the plans going forward.
Sure. So sorry. So when we budgeted school choice, we were conservative with the number of kids who are graduating, and Courtney did a trend analysis of historically each year how many kids we have coming in to school choice, and then she backed that out a little bit just to make sure we're conservative. The goal we talked about, and you alluded to, Mrs. Mulder, in making Douglas a destination location, is that as we're building more of these programs and we're bringing things like Project Lead the Way to middle school and high school, we're creating pathways, we're offering enrichment programs in our middle school, we're beefing up our literacy program, we're doing some other things that it may attract other people from other towns to come to Douglas, and that is a revenue stream for us. The other thing it potentially does too is it could mitigate students who may choose to apply and go to BVT. And that would also potentially, although that's a story for another meeting, bring additional revenue into the school department. Did that answer your question? I think she's frozen. Yes, okay.
Anyone else have any questions?
Lisa, is now the appropriate time for school committee, or should we wait?
You want to go ahead now? We can.
Okay. So first, Courtney, going back to the school choice fund slide, when you mentioned the ESSER grants and some of the other grants that we have received or will be receiving, are those included in the projections already, or is that going to be in addition to what is projected right now?
I guess what I meant, I'm glad you asked that, Becky. I guess I'm trying to state it in a different way, but okay, the school choice is a completely separate thing. So, but each year we really do struggle with the use of school choice. Now, certainly you don't want to build up a war chest of funding, because it is funds that we do have available to us, and they can only be used for educational expenditures. But yet you want to look prospectively as well. So we did, as you can see, we are dipping more into it to come down to that 1.5%. But I guess what I'm saying, if it weren't for the receipt of all these extra funds that we just found out about within the last, basically 3 weeks, we would not have felt comfortable with that higher level, that additional, I don't know to what extent we would have, you know, of the 222,913 more dollars.
So, Mrs. Charney,
I don't know if that's answers the question or helps at all.
It doesn't quite. Dr. Vera, do you?
Yeah, so to go into a little bit of ESSER 3. So ESSER 3 came in, I believe, at $407,000. 20% of that has to be dedicated towards remediation programs. So it's $80,000 that we'll have to use in FY22 or 23 in remediation programs. The remaining approximately $320,000, we haven't allocated those funds yet as to what we're going to do with them in 22 and 23. The ESSER 2 money had a lot of restrictions onto what we could and couldn't use it for. So the ESSER 2 money really had to be for COVID-related issues. So for technology, for supplies, for PPE, for remediation. The ESSER 3 money, they're now allowing us to use to offset operational costs. So the $327,000 in ESSER 3, we have not allocated at all for anything for FY22 or FY23. So knowing that we have that $327,000 available to us, we were a little bit more comfortable, or we were more comfortable using some more school choice money to fund FY22, knowing that we have the ESSER 3 money available to us.
Because, all right, now correct me if I'm wrong, because there is potential that using that grant money in the appropriate ways will free up money that was going to be used for those items and programs and such to keep in the balance or spend on other things in the budget.
So if I understand your question correctly, could we use ESSER 2 money to offset things that we already have in the budget for next year? Yes. And could we use ESSER 3 money to buy things, programs, enhance the educational experience for kids that we haven't planned for now in the future? Yes, we can.
Okay. All right.
And also, I want to note as well, Becky, that I'm always conservative. So you see where I have the projected carryover of 450,000. I'm being very concerned because, you know, the last thing you ever want to do is overstate revenues.
Right.
So, you know,
right.
So I keep all these things in my mind when this one I did really struggle with this year because it's the first time we've gone to that extent, but.
Yeah, so that brings me to my follow-up question. And let me just say before my only other question, I really appreciate all of the work that you all have put into this. This is not an easy task, obviously. And there's this catch-22 that we're talking about, right? Like you want to make the school better to attract more people, to retain more money in town, but you need money to attract more people. So yeah, I thank you for your work on this. And for anybody who doesn't know Mrs. Keegan, she takes her work very seriously and is very thorough and really cares about relationships with vendors. So yeah, never take any questions I have as criticism, just information hunting. So then my next question is, so when I look at the fund balance after contingency in school choice funds, both in FY projected in FY22 and 23. And when I also look at the FY22 projection for circuit breaker, noting that we do not have contingency funds for 21 or 22. Are you feeling okay or comfortable? I'm nervous. You know, I'm nervous about where these numbers are going and the fact that, as it was sort of stated at the beginning of the presentation, certain items are not included in this budget in terms of expanding academic offerings, grounds maintenance, and that sort of thing, and that this is not sustainable. So I just, you know, I know, but nobody has the magic wand for this, but where are we going to go from here when we're sort of dipping so much? is my question. And do you feel okay about it? And that's sort of for Dr. Vieira and Mrs. Keegan.
So I will say this about Mrs. Keegan. She is as conservative comes that I've met. And I challenge her every once in a while to say, Courtney, can we push a little bit here? And she's like, absolutely not. Don't even ask me. You'll get my resignation if you make me do it. So it's true. So I challenge her and I push her sometimes. So the numbers that you're seeing here and that we've presented to you is, and I start off by saying this, that we've spent a lot of time, and we go back, forth, from her office to my office, looking at things. Courtney, I mean, even if you just want to real briefly talk about your Munis dump into Excel, and you look at into the amount, just some of the trends.
Just to maybe give a visual of what that might help. But you know, I do really appreciate the question, Becky, because it, you know, I don't want to say it isn't without some inks, because I did state that already, you know, but that's kind of every year though too. But you know, but so what I do is I did an analysis. What I do is I do a lot of analysis work. So first of all, I dumped the whole general fund into Excel so that I project through June 30th. And then even though there's a larger balance in that 450,000, I take off anything that I think could happen or I know is going to come up. And I create a column and I say, you know, go through that cold call, every single one of those, I don't know, is it 300 or 400 lines or whatever it is, and say, what do I know I'm going to have available? And believe me, that amount was less than half of what was really available. Because I really have to your point, I have to, and I know, and it is true, and Paul says it a little bit in jest, but it is true. I get pushed not only from, you know, I get pushed from a lot of people, so I have to really kind of be very, very cautious. Because, you know, it does take a lot of money to run a school district, and people want things that they need, and you know, that's how it is. So I did that analysis of the general fund, but also on the other side of that equation, I also did an analysis of the school choice account. And you see, because we budgeted 1 million, so I actually looked at the carryover balance, every single thing that we spent through the entire year. And some of the biggest items are electricity and fuel. I projected out those right through the end of the year, everything. And let me even back up with the electricity to show you how insane I am. I don't even know anybody else who does this.
This is
if
an
you
accurate
saw my elaborate spreadsheet that I actually use to budget for electricity, you'd say, who does this? I actually I have a 15-year record of use of kilowatt hours. If the kilowatt hours changes, I know why. It's because we did a light bulb project. I have the exact per kilowatt hour pricing, and I do distribution. We record every single school, the exact number of kilowatt hours every single month. Of course, when I'm preparing the budget, I have to project out. So I average out, and I even check the prior years, make sure my averaging is in line with those prior years. And, you know, I look at all of that. So I do quite, and actually I kind of amazed myself, because I did, it was either last year or the year before, I said, I wonder how my methodology is working out with what it actually comes out being. And it was almost scary. It was almost to the number. And it's a $350,000 electricity budget. But so I looked at all of that, every single expenditure, and I projected it out through June 30th, and looked at what we were or weren't spending in the school choice. I looked at both sides of that equation, because as you know, what's left is in general fund, it ends up being increasing our school choice balance, you know, at the end of the year when we close out the year. I also did an analysis of our school lunch account, even though it has nothing to do with the general fund, because 99.9% of the time pre-COVID, or 100% of the time, it's all paid from the revolving fund. As you know, COVID did affect that to some extent. So I do an analysis of that all the time, just in case something might affect our general fund. If something goes awry, I did an analysis of the preschool account, because you know COVID did affect that as well. I also did an analysis of the athletic accounts for middle school and high school, both revenues and expenditures. And with those, I started off beginning in FY19, so I can even have a comparison of our carryover balances. And again, actually, I forgot to mention this. There was an increase of 15,000 use of athletic revolving funds in this budget as well. And that's after doing that analysis. So to answer your question, after doing all of that, that gave me some comfort level. If I did not do that, there is no way that I would propose this. But it's because we spent, all the time doing it. And Paul, I have to say, he's out of the 20 superintendents I've worked with or for, he does ask a lot of good questions. He is very astute. And I use that word all the time. And I told him the other day, and he can attest to this, I appreciate it.
You did.
Because he's someone who wants to understand the story behind the numbers. He wants to know how everything works. And even though it takes a lot of time, I do really appreciate it. So I do feel comfortable with this, and I would never propose it if I didn't. I hope that answered your question. Probably very long-winded, but.
It does. No, I said I was information seeking, so I get my information. Thank you. But yeah, I mean, just to follow up, I think Dr. Vera too, I don't know that there is an answer to this right now, but in terms of the sustainability, maybe that's another topic for another day.
Yeah, that's a topic for another day.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, because there is, yeah.
Yeah.
Anyone else? If not, I think I will be looking for a motion to close the public hearing.
Make a motion to close the public hearing on the FY22 school budget.
Motion made by Heather,
Second.
second by Kelly. Roll call vote.
Becky Charniak, aye.
Heather Moore and I.
Kelly Grady, aye. Sorry.
Brown eye. I think we lost Julie. So thank you. So moving on, does anybody have any old business? Any new business? Seeing none, we'll turn it over to Dr. Vieira and the superintendent's report.
All right. Good evening, everyone. I'm going to push out some of my COVID report and let the principals share out some of the stuff that's been occurring in the buildings the past 2 weeks. But as everyone knows, we're back full time, which is awesome. Our K-5 kids went back on the 22nd. Middle and high school went back on Monday. And, I said to people, we're basically experiencing August in March or now in April. So some of those same issues that you have at the beginning of every year happens. Traffic's always bad the first week or two until parents figure out when to drop off and pick up. I think Mr. Bell saw about his number of parent drop-off go from about 40 to 45 parents to about 120. So when you triple the amount of cars in a spot, it takes a while to work that out. So they're going to give you the good, the bad, and the ugly of what coming back to school has looked like. Again, we're going to start with Mrs. Socia in a few minutes because she always sets the bar high for everyone. And next, just a real quick update on pool testing. We're in week 3 of our pool testing. We started at high school. We went to middle. This week we started at elementary, and next week we're at the primary school. The state has just let us know that they're going to continue the free pool testing through the end of the school year. So going back to a question that Mrs. Charniak had about the grant funding, we had actually allocated $25,000 out of our ESSA 2 money, and we allocated that to pay for pool testing. Well, now we have pool testing paid for by the Commonwealth through the end of the year. So we have that $25,000 available to us that we can reallocate. We're running about 20% of our kids who have agreed, actually between 10 and 15, about 15% of our kids have agreed to the pool testing. So we're going to reassess when we come back from vacation as to whether or not we'll continue with it. Again, with 400 kids in a building, when you only have 45, 50 kids doing it, is it statistically valid? But we'll look into that as we go forward. That's pool testing. I'm going to turn it over to the principals just to give you a brief 2-minute update as to what the first 2 weeks for primary and elementary and 3 days for middle and high school have looked like. Mrs. Socia?
Thank you. So as Dr. Vieira said, it was like opening day. I mean, we had the butterflies and we were all excited. The kids were excited. The buses were full. We were so lucky. We got Gigi, who is our ST Math penguin, to visit and greet the kids off the bus and coming into school. Gigi came into the school, went into classrooms. The kids were just beside themselves. We had a bubble machine outside, and so the kids were excited about that. And once they got in, you know, they were cohort A, meet cohort B, and the comments were, oh my goodness, I didn't realize this one was in my class. I have all these friends now. So it was just a fun day. Teachers spent time, you know, making sure they review all of the classroom procedures. There are some changes for them, where they have snack time, where they have lunch, where we split half in the gym and half in the cafeteria. So teachers took the time to go through that. A nurse went into every single classroom, reviewed wearing your mask properly, carrying around your mask box for when we take the mask off, and taking it home, making sure it gets washed, things like that. Our adjustment counselor did the same thing, checking in on those students, everything going well, and make sure everybody was good to go. We ended the week with a popsicle party, and that was like the hit. You might have thought I gave them gold because, oh my goodness, can we do that again? You know, we did it on a Friday, and on Monday they already wanted popsicles again. So we did it at the end of lunch, which worked out perfectly. So once again, students, teachers, everyone, they've adapted to yet another new normal. So things are going well. We had a couple little tweaks with, you know, the lunches and like the traffic and things like that, but I think everything has worked out really well. Any questions?
Thank you, Mrs. Sosha. Mr. Bell.
All right, so a lot of similar things. The first day back, we definitely had some fun as the kids were coming in. We had the Douglas Tiger mascot there, and we had some noisemakers and music going on. And really, that first day was like the first day of school again, where you know, going through those routines and procedures and just making sure everybody felt comfortable and safe. We ended up, after the dust settled, with about classes ranging anywhere from 23 to 27 kids in a class. We still have 40 remote students in the 4 grades total, so it's about 10% of our population is still remote. We also had, I think, 3 students come back from homeschooling because we were back full-time, which was exciting to see those kids return to the elementary school. 4th grade, because of the numbers and the situation there, we have 1 classroom that is live streaming, so we have 12 students in person and 10 students remote in that class. The first week, there were a few minor hiccups, nothing major, but just trying to figure out the best way to do the instruction. Took a couple days to work out the kinks, but I've been in there a lot lately, and they're doing an awesome job with it. So I want to say a special thank you to the 4th grade team for helping figure that piece out, so that we're able to get all the kids back in 4th grade. Like Dr. Vieira said, arrival and dismissal, the first couple of days I know were very slow, and we really appreciated the patience as we worked through that. I think now we have a decent traffic flow, still a little bit longer than what it was in previous years, but with the different changes we made, it's working pretty well. Lunch is going great with using the 2 different spaces. We had 8 parents volunteer that are coming in throughout the week, which has been a lifesaver for us, because we have staff in every place, but just having an extra set of hands to help hand sanitize kids and wipe down tables has been awesome. So thank you to those parents. And if anybody else wants to volunteer, we'll still do a couple more. But I think the most important thing about these first 2.5 weeks is that we're seeing that students are happy and students are learning, which I know is what we all want. And it's great to have kids back in the building again. I think we also have a lot of tired students and tired staff, because it's been a fun couple weeks, but it's just cool to have everybody back in the building. Any questions?
Mr. Olson. You have to unmute yourself.
Also had a spirited opening with all the teachers and signs. Mr. Iranian was a disc jockey. We also had some Tiger paraphernalia that were out there, and the kids were welcomed on Monday. It's required a great deal of work and a lot of cooperation, both from secretaries, custodians, paraprofessionals, and the teachers. We went over the expectations with the students all week long, as have the teachers as well. Just going through the logistics of what we have, there's a lot of things to plan for. At the very beginning, teachers shifted a number of the students to provide optimal learning for the students that we have there. Many of the students needed extra support, so there was a slight adjustment on their homerooms or SELs. The secretaries had to follow up with that. The other is aligning the number of seats and desks and everything around the building, which the custodians were awesome with. When we opened up, everything was spot on. We had the kids totally accommodated. When the students arrive in the morning, initially the drop-offs that were taking place at the front of the middle school, typically the students come in around 7:15 in the morning, and the parents line up at the front entrance and they kind of dovetail all the way back. This morning, Mr. Iranian was attempting to do a little bit of an adjustment on that, because there's a tendency for the students to, the parents to keep the students in the cars to the very last minute until they pull up toward the entrance. So he was attempting to get them out a little bit quicker today. That caused a little bit of a traffic jam. The planning is there, but at the same time, we know that we have to adjust a little bit. So tomorrow morning, we're going to address that particular issue, and the students are actually going to be admitted into the building about 5 minutes earlier, and we're only going to be exiting the students that are right around the rotary there, so it'll be a lot easier. Again, the expectations have been pretty clear. We've been very safety conscious. The buses have been accessing the building at the typical time. It does not take much time to get the students off the buses. We've been exiting one at a time so we can respect the social distancing. And school has been basically starting at the same time with minimal disruptions. We've worked cooperatively with Jessica, the bus supervisor, and it's worked out very well. Students and the staff appear to be very, very happy to be back. I do have to send out a special praise to the cafeteria ladies, because we've adjusted a little bit. Originally, we were a little concerned that we were going to have an overflow, but we used the library for a few students the first couple of days, but we've been able to adjust this so we can accommodate everybody in the cafeteria now. We've rearranged the lines a little bit. They're moving very, very smoothly. The students actually eat quicker now than they did when there was half the students that were there. The cafeteria ladies have been absolutely amazing. The paras have assisted them in spraying down the sanitizer in the cafeteria. The cafeteria ladies clean it up, and it's worked very, very well. We've given the students 3 different options during recess. Some of them still prefer to go up to the gymnasium and shoot hoops or throw balls around. Everything is sanitized. Mr. Iranian has taken a number of the students outside, and those that wish to locate it and remain in the cafeteria are able to do that too. So there are 3 options, and the kids, I think, enjoy that sort of thing that we're getting. Again, safety is the main issue. At the end of the day, when students depart, we're actually exiting the 6th graders first, because they come up from the 1st floor. We don't want them congesting in the stairways with the 7th and 8th graders. They're boarded the buses very nicely. 7th and 8th graders come after that, and we've been exiting pretty much on time, and it's been very safe out there as well. So for the most part, again, pretty happy people. Our adjustment counselor, Caitlin McCardle, has sent out a survey, and it's very favorable in terms of the perspective on being able to use teachers as a resource and what's going on in the building. The last thing I would leave you with is that I had an opportunity to go into many of the classes, and I was particularly impressed with the cooperative learning activities that they had, melding the students from cohort A and cohort B into a carousel activity where they were able to interact with one another. Even the students were aware of the fact, gee, this is a great activity. It's a wonderful opportunity to meet all of the new students that are in there. So extremely creative, and kudos to those faculty members that were able to do it. Again, we're learning every single day. We're adjusting, but we're planning, and we're very sensitive to what's going on.
Thank you, Mr. Olson. Last but not least,
So at the high school, we started Monday with an advisory, and during that time, we took each class outside for class pictures, having cohort A and cohort B kind of together for the first time and get to see everybody. And we did the senior picture where Miss Costa goes up on the roof and takes a picture of the kids. She's actually going to do another one in a few weeks. We found an angle from which we can probably space them out 6 feet apart outside and have them take their masks off, and that'll be a nice thing for the yearbook. I think mask breaks and lunches, they've been fine. The real test will be when there's a rainy day, because, we do have enough seats, but, they enjoy going outside. It's been a nice senior privilege that got extended to all the kids. We'll see, once they have to stay inside, it gets a little bit tighter for space. There's been a lot of prep going on for our winter, spring, almost summer carnival that's going to happen next week. So they've been painting the windows. They've been working on banners, just sort of like the normal social aspects of school seem to be kind of coming back. But I wanted to get another perspective of how things have gone. So I did ask the parents and students and teachers at my school council meeting today how it was going. And I think to kind of sum it up in 2 sentences, better than they thought it would go, and strange having everyone back. You look at a classroom and you feel like it's stuffed full of kids, and you count and it's, 17 kids, but that seems like a lot. I know that, leading up to things, we had kind of talked with students about some of the things that they were stressed about, the worry that teachers would have really high work expectations for kids. But I think that between teachers being very nice and the use of the intervention blocks that we have, where students can kind of get caught up on their work, that fear that the work would be overwhelming hasn't been as bad as they thought it would be. But more the problem has been that the need to get back into a routine for school. So there were a lot of sleepy students at school today that aren't used to having to come in 3 days in a row, or having to kind of change their work habits, where they're used to kind of having 3 full days to work on work at a leisurely pace, or having work assigned on a Wednesday that's not due until Monday. Well, now they have class on Monday, they have that class again on Wednesday, so the homework is due on Wednesday. So there's been they've had to rethink, I think was the way one of the parents put it, rethink how they approach homework. But I think that they'll adjust. They've been very resilient this year. They're on their 3rd bell schedule of the year, so they've been able to kind of adjust so far. I will say that, kind of the mea culpa that I'll have, my mistake was not involving kids more in the planning process. And so I think this was kind of something that, as a result, felt like yet another thing was kind of done to them without really having their feedback. And I think I involved the staff in it. I didn't really involve the students as much. And I think that led to some of the anxiety and the doubt about, what was going to happen and how it was going to be. So I have reconstituted my student advisory council so that they can help me with the planning for things as we move forward, to make sure that their voice is heard, because, they're old enough to kind of have that voice, or they should have that opportunity. I was asked today if they'll be, because graduation is right around the corner. It's less than 2 months away now. I was asked today if they would be able to march in the way we've done in the past with the bagpiper playing. And I thought it was a great idea. Why not? March them down to the field, have them face their parents for pictures, and then send them out to sit with their families. So the kids are already thinking about graduation, because it's coming really soon. Ms. Mulder, it's coming right around the corner. So that's my 2 minutes.
thank you, Mr. Romano. This was a lot of work to put together, and I think you're hearing a common theme that we're really happy to have all the kids back, which is fantastic, but it really took a lot of effort and a lot of work from everyone involved in the Douglas Public Schools to put together. I think we are also finding out that we have a lot of people out of shape, both kids and adults. The going from the hybrid to the 5-day a week and 20 kids in a class has been a change. And you have that piece of it coupled with, whenever you start a school year in August, there's always a level of stress and anxiety and apprehension. And you add to that doing it in the middle of the year, and you add to that doing it in the middle of a pandemic with a lot of unknown entities out there. People are tired. So I can say that I am sure people are welcoming April vacation a week from Friday, and will definitely need that week off to recover and recoup from it. But again, this has truly been a team effort. I appreciate everyone. Josh alluded to it a few minutes ago about graduation, and we do have some great news to share with people about graduation day, plans, and information. So, Mr. Romano, keep on sharing some good news.
Okay, so we are planning our senior week as close to what we normally do as we can. So graduation is June 4th, and so that entire week is set aside for our senior week activities. So Monday is a holiday, that's Memorial Day. But Tuesday, June 1st, will be our motorcade and class night. I've already been in touch with the police chief and working with Officer Poloni to get that arranged. So we'll do our motorcade that evening. They'll circle around probably the same route that we did last year, seemed to work out great. When they get back to the high school parking lot, we'll do our class night awards and scholarships presentation right there in the parking lot. It went really well last night. That way, we don't have to, if we did it inside, we'd have to restrict kids to maybe 2 guests. In fact, not even that, actually, now that I think about it, there's 87 seniors, I think, right now. If we do it outside, people can, grab their lawn chairs and sit back, and it was really pleasant last year. Wednesday will be the seniors will parade up to the other schools. Normally they parade through them, but I think I'll work with the other principals that this year maybe we'll do a walk by like we did for Halloween. Instead of going through the schools, maybe have the kids come outside and our kids walk through the parking lot and the front of the back of the schools to show off their caps and gowns. They'll come back and they'll do rehearsal, and then they'll do their picnic. I don't know who's catering it this year, but that's always a pretty good time. Thursday, we normally we'd have baccalaureate. St. Dennis is not, which is the largest church in town, doesn't have the capacity to do it. We can't really do it at school because it's more or less a church service. So I don't think baccalaureate's not going to happen this year, but Friday will be graduation. We're going to do it outside. The students are capped at 6 guests per. That's not our cap. That's a Department of Ed cap. But we'll find some way to get it broadcast out, probably on this YouTube channel too. If it rains, we do want to push it back to Saturday. And I know that night is pins, I call them lock-ins still. I don't know. I've never heard that term used for it, but it's a celebration graduation event that they do for the seniors. If it rains, they'll still have pins that night because it's the only night they can get the place, but we'll do graduation Saturday if we have to. We really have to do it outside. If we were to do it inside in the gym, we'd probably have to limit kids to 2 guests. And, I just think I'd rather that students were able to have as many of their families there, as much of their family there as possible. And graduation pretty much looks the way it always has, with the exception that we have the kids sit with their families instead of sitting up front by the stage. Other than that, and the masks, it looks pretty much the same as it normally does. We were ordering our graduation awards today and picking out new stoles for the kids who are completing the pathways and getting everything ready. So it's coming soon. Work on your speech, Dr. Vieira.
It is just so awesome just to talk about non-COVID stuff.
Yeah,
Was great. Oh,
Yeah.
fantastic. Like senior week activities, normal events. Yes, people are wearing masks, but that was just a breath of fresh air.
It is very nice. We're very excited. And incidentally, National Honor Society induction is next week as well. Right now it's looking rainy, which is not great. We'll move it to the gym if we have to, but it is next Wednesday. We'll finally be able to induct our 2020, 2021 inductees.
Awesome. Any questions for Mr. Romano?
I have a quick question. Thank you for all you're doing, first of all. Obviously, very appreciated by this mom. Secondly, do we have a backup plan for tents? I mean, do we have?
I looked at it. Yeah, it's very expensive. I looked at the cost on it, and it's very expensive to rent tents that size. So it's more than our entire graduation budget right now. So yeah, those big circus tents, those are expensive. I'll work with Courtney on buying one in the future.
Well, I'm more thinking like maybe if you have a tent for like the stage, I guess. I've never been to an outdoor graduation, I don't think.
No, that's
And then like everybody in the audience, if it's raining, you just do like what you would do at like a Patriots game or something like that.
yeah, it's a
If I
thought.
could even remember what that's like.
Yeah, it's a thought. Let me talk that over with the team. We can talk it over and see what people think. And I'll price out like a smaller, because it is a very small stage. I can price out what that looks like too. I was looking at like the massive tent for the 350 people that'll be there. But
anything else from Mr. Romano? All right. Thank you. Next, I'm really pleased and honored to introduce Mr. Robert O'Brien as our new middle school principal. Bob is a graduate of UMass Amherst with an undergraduate degree in English. He went on to receive his master's in education from Worcester State. Upon graduation, Bob served in the U.S. Army and did a tour over the Persian Gulf. He started teaching English at Dudley Charlton, where he also then became the athletic director and the vice principal at Dudley Charlton. Little does he know that we have a math teacher at the high school who was one of his former students in Dudley Charlton who emailed me, Julie. Yeah. Is she married, Josh? Okay, so I don't know what her maiden name is, but we'll talk about that in a little bit. So she emailed me minutes after I sent out the email to staff. He spent a few years at David Prouty High School as the principal, and then has been the past 5 years at Northbridge Middle School. We had a great process. It started off with, we had about 30 people apply for the job. Ms. Urquhart and I did a paper screen, and we screened 8 candidates that we interviewed. We had a great screening committee and a first round of interviews that consisted of members of the school committee, leadership team, central office. We had parents, we had paraprofessionals, we had teachers, and we pared it down to 3 individuals. Each of those individuals did a 1 hour long meeting with faculty. They spent about 10-15 minutes introducing themselves to faculty, and then did about 45 minutes of Q&A with staff. And then the final of the process was last week. We had each of the candidates come in for about 2.5 hours. We toured the schools. We visited classrooms. I got the opportunity to sit and talk with them for a little bit. And then we did probably about a half-hour faculty meeting with each of the staff, with the staff. We went through our reference checks, and Bob emerged as the clear number 1 choice for this role. So we're really excited to have him on board. We're really excited to have him signed. And I know on the agenda it says middle school principal search. I didn't think we were able to finalize a contract as quickly as we did. So I was going to give you a highlight on the search, but we finalized it. Really excited to have him be able to start this early. Give him the ability to have some conversations with Mr. Olson. Give him the ability to spend some time learning about the school. So when he officially starts on July 1, that learning curve is a lot shorter and he can hit the ground running. So I'm going to turn it over to Bob for a few seconds to say hello, then turn it over to the committee for any questions. But welcome to Douglas, Bob.
Thank you very much, Dr. Vieira, and thank you and the entire search committee. They did a great job. One of the better searches I've ever been on, so I applaud you in that. And being the son of a school committee member in Worcester for a number of years, my mom was on the school committee. I know all the hard work that you all put in, so I thank you very much.
Any questions from the committee?
I don't have any questions, but welcome. I'm looking forward to the transition and hopefully next year being a little more regular.
Yeah.
Anyone else?
Thank you.
I heard, I do know somebody that's in the Northbridge school system that when they learned of you possibly departing, they were very traumatized by it because they really thought highly of you. So I guess you work with the 5th graders and they have a very high opinion of you. So that's awesome.
Thank you. Tough group to leave, but looking forward to being part of the Douglas community.
You're muted, Becky.
I said they'll be okay, not too traumatized, so don't worry. Welcome to Douglas. It's nice to see you again, and shout out to Neely too. She really did a great job of chairing the screening committee as well. So thank you to everybody involved, and welcome, Bob.
Thank you very much.
And I'll echo everybody else's sentiments. Welcome to Douglas. It was a pleasure to meet you on a couple of the Zoom calls, and looking forward to seeing you around.
Thank you.
All right. And the last piece of my report is, sadly, this is the last of our Zoom school committee meetings. We'll be going full live and in person starting in May. We went back and forth whether or not to have this one on Zoom or live, but with this being the budget public hearing and we having so many people participating in Zoom, I didn't want to switch it. So this is our last Zoom meeting. We'll be starting our school committee meetings at the we're going to move back to the high school, and we're going to do it in the cafeteria of the high school. That space is a little bit bigger than the stage in the auditorium, gives us a little bit more room to spread out. The lighting's a little bit better. So we're going to go to the high school cafeteria starting in May, and then hopefully next year we can get back to room C208, where it's been a while since we've been up there. But we're going to go back to the high school for school committee meetings in May. That's it for my report. If there aren't any questions, we will go on to the next piece. All right. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Okay, we're going to move on to the school committee and subcommittee report. Accounts payable.
Okay, so I signed warrant 39, school lunch 2021, dated 3/25/21, which was one batch, totaling $2,832.91. And also warrant 39, school year 21, dated 3/25/21, which was 9 batches, totaling $72,895.44. And there was nothing unusual.
Thank you. Okay, we're going to move on to the consent agenda, and I think we only have the one set of meeting minutes that will move the 17th to the next meeting. So just for March 10th, 2021. Nobody has anything. I'll be looking for a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the school committee meeting minutes March 10th, 2021.
Motion made by Kelly.
Second.
Second by Heather. Roll call vote.
Becky Charniak, aye.
Kelly Grady, aye.
Julie Mulder, aye.
Heather Moore and I.
Lisa Brown, aye. Thank you. Now we're moving back to the FY 2022 school department budget. Have a vote. Possible vote. Does anybody have any questions? Seeing none, does anyone have the language? Because that's the one thing I did not open. That Courtney sent.
I have it. I'm pulling it up. Just give me a second. I move to approve the FY22 school department operating budget as outlined in the FY22 superintendent's proposed budget school committee meeting public hearing Wednesday, April 7th, 2021 in the amount of $14,727, and the school bus transportation budget in the amount of $1,542,366 for a total amount of $15,543,093.
Motion made by Heather. Thank you.
Second.
Second by Kelly. Roll call vote.
Becky Charniak, aye.
Kelly Grady, aye.
Julie Mulder, aye.
Heather Moore and I.
Lisa Brown, aye. And thank you, Courtney, for that language
Okay, you're welcome.
and all the work on that budget.
Thank you, everyone.
All of you.
Thank
Okay, moving on to the FY 2021 DHS indoor track fee reduction.
Miss Sokol.
Hello, everyone. Does everyone have a copy of the paperwork that kind of sums it up? No, yes.
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 Okay.
So currently, what I'm requesting a recommendation, if I could get to lower the user fee for indoor sport, indoor track, which is being held outdoors because of COVID, and they have 2 meets. We had one today and we have one next Wednesday. So they only have 2 meets as opposed to 5 and then postseason, which will not happen. So I'm asking for the user fee for this season only, indoor track, to be reduced from $200 to $100. We have 9 participants on the team. And there is a whole financial breakdown Courtney put together with the information I had sent to her about the effect it would have on the budgets, et cetera. I can go through it line by line if you'd like.
No.
No.
I think we're good. Do you have any questions?
Sorry.
No questions on that? Well, anybody has the language? I do.
I have it.
We'll be looking to approve a reduction in the athletic fees to wrong one, to our resident language.
Okay, I move to approve a reduction in the athletic fees to $160 per student per
Oh,
sport.
no, that's a different agenda item.
I did.
I've got it.
Oh,
Ready? I move to approve the reduction of $100 for the DHS indoor track, resulting in a fee amount of $100 due to the significant reduction in meets due to COVID. This fee reduction only applies to the 2020-2021 school year.
Motion made by Becky.
Second.
Second by Kelly. Roll call vote.
Becky Charniak, aye.
Kelly Grady, aye.
Julie Mulder, aye.
Heather Moore and I.
Lisa Brown, aye. Thank you.
All right. The next piece, which is why Mrs. Mulder, I think, was excited, was, you know, it's, I know I'm new to Douglas, but it's exciting to talk about lowering fees and not increasing fees for the first time in many years. So this proposal came as a result of, 1, doing an analysis of our budget, and 2, through a discussion with our budget subcommittee. So currently athletic fees are $175 for middle school students and $200 for high school students. As we looked at our budget going forward and the state of our revolving account, we'd like to make the following proposal to the school committee for a reduction in fees of user fees. So for middle school, we'd like to go from $175 to $160, a reduction of $15 per student per sport. And at the high school, going from $200 to $180 per student per sport, a reduction of $20 per sport. So again, not a huge reduction, but at least somewhat a reduction going in the right direction. In terms of financial impact of that, this is going to be a projected revenue loss of about $1,700 for the middle school and $4,700 at the high school, due to the reduction in busing officials and the cost of running the sports this year and a lot of things taking place. We have the ability to do this for next year and hopefully to continue it in upcoming years. So we're hoping that the school committee approves this reduction in user fees for both middle school and high school student athletes for the 21-22 school year.
Do you have any questions?
Just, I know nobody's got the crystal ball, but you feel this is sustainable. I just hate to bump fees down and then turn around and have to put them back up. Thinking that next year we might get back to a more normal sports where we've got the busing and everything that, you know, is more on par with what it used to be. And so I understand that next year it would work, but for the following year, I guess I'll ask Courtney because I know she wouldn't do it if she wasn't comfortable with it. I've learned in my 3 years.
Yeah.
But
And again,
I just, you know, to make sure that we're not,
Yeah.
you know, going to have to boomerang right back.
Yeah, no. And I think actually I'd like to hear Mary's thoughts after I speak too with regard to the program, particularly at the high school, only because that's the largest program. Not to slant the middle school at all, which we're actually looking to expand. But definitely, like I said earlier, I did look at 19, 20, 21, and 22 and going forward. So, it is a very small amount of money. I think on several levels, we definitely want to increase athletic participation. And I know this has been an issue in the past. And we are, we've added a few sports in the last couple of years. I mean, unfortunately, we can't look at this year. So sad. We can't look at this year's history. But looking at before COVID, pre-COVID, I mean, things were really, really looking up, with regard to the athletic program. More participants. And, Mary and Josh were looking to add, we were talking about adding a couple more sports and things of that nature. There's a lot of enthusiasm, excitement regarding the athletic program. It's a great thing for our kids, particularly in a small town, any program you have like that. So, I don't foresee any problems because I really feel that, I feel Mary and I are both conservative when we project our participants. And so, it's a very small amount of money as far as overall revenue. But I'd like to hear Mary's thoughts as well, as far as her feelings, as far as the program going forward in expansion and numbers of participants increasing.
Trying to unmute myself. Well, I think COVID year, like Courtney said, it's really hard to judge off of this year. Our numbers are definitely down. I think just a lot of kids aren't participating for whatever reason. But we were on an upward trend. We did have a lot of kids. I think track was had a lot more kids. We're looking at, trying to increase our offerings. There was a thought about boys volleyball, and then that was going to be tried to put in the budget for this year, and then COVID hit and it didn't happen. So I think the more we are able to offer the kids to keep them here or to just give them something to do, I think that'll help, if we can offer more things. And I think lowering the user fee is always attractive to parents, because I know we put something in, and my question to Courtney was going to be, I know the school committee approved some kind of cap. There was a cap approved, so that may have to be adjusted. I think that may have to be revisited. Because I do have a few kids that play 3 sports, and that will kick in as far as this year being capped for one student playing actually 4 sports, one kid is. So I think it's awesome if we could support that decrease, and I think it'll be a positive sign and the parents would be appreciative of it. And I think kids will have more options to play because they won't have to be able to pick, hey, you only can play 2. Now maybe they can play the 3. So I think it's a great idea, and thank you very much for taking care of that.
That's good.
And it's also, and again, with regard to the amount, and that's why we're also being, obviously that's not an exorbitant amount, but it is in recognition though as well. And it is at least some reduction. So you're kind of balancing things. So trying to balance things, I should say.
But I think that's just like it's coming from the school, and I think they'll recognize it. As a parent, I would recognize that, hey, they're trying to help us here, and I think that's awesome, personally, as a parent.
And just to let you know, the caps do stay in place.
Yes.
With this vote, if it goes. So, any other questions? If not, I'll be looking for a motion.
I move to approve a reduction in the athletic fees to $160 per student year per sport for the middle school and $180 per student per sport for the high school for FY 2021 to FY 2022 school year. The current caps are to remain in place. Sorry, I had to print it up.
Motion made by Heather.
Second.
Second by Kelly. Roll call vote.
I'm sorry, just as a point of clarification, this isn't for the entirety of the FY 2022 school year, correct? Of FY 2022.
Yeah, no, and that's why in the language it actually says for the 21-22 school year. It's right.
Okay.
Beginning.
Okay.
So if you want to actually change it, is that your point, Becky?
I want to know what I'm saying yes or no to.
Before. So just to clarify, we do typically vote this every year.
Yep.
And that's why I put that.
Okay. So the 2021-2022 school year.
Correct.
Thanks, Lisa. Sorry about that.
Roll call vote.
Becky Charniak, aye.
Kelly Grady, aye.
Julie Mulder, aye.
Heather Moore and I.
Lisa Brown, aye. Thank you. And moving on to the DHS furniture.
Mr. Romano.
Hi. So I have. Oh. Am I unmuted?
No, you're good.
Okay, thank you. So I have I have 18 computer desks that are probably from when the school was first built. And they're essentially obsolete. They were built for the old desktop style computers, which we, for the most part, don't use. They have mostly been disassembled and they've been in storage in, I call it the art studio room. It's the second art room that we have at the school. And I really need to clear that out because the numbers for art for next year, there's about 200 students that are going to be, 200 students sitting in art classes next year, so I'm taking multiple. So I really need that second space. I did shop them around to the other principals. Nobody needed them. They're really too big to be used at the the elementary school. They're basically just taking up space. And of all things, I have plenty of furniture at Douglas High School. I also have in the flex room, one of the flex classrooms, it was originally built as a language lab for foreign language. And that concept of using a language lab is really kind of obsolete now with the one-to-one program that we have at the school. We don't use it as a language lab. It hasn't been used in that capacity in a long time. And to actually refurbish it and repair the system would be a lot more expensive than I think the investment would be worth. But there are computer stations in that room that have fallen into disrepair as well. And by taking them out and disposing of them, we could use that room in a lot better ways as far as the space. So what I'm asking is to dispose of these items that are simply just not needed anymore and that I haven't been able to find anybody else in the district who needed them. There probably is some cost involved in the disposal that I'll work on with Mr. Collette.
Anybody have any questions? No, I'll be looking for a motion.
I move to approve the disposal of 18 obsolete and excess computer desks and 18 language lab stations at the high school that have no value.
Motion made by Becky.
Second.
Second by Kelly. Roll call vote.
Becky Charniak, aye.
Kelly Grady, aye.
Julie Mulder, aye.
Heather Moore and I.
Lisa Brown, aye. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Romano.
Okay, moving on to the school business and operations manager's report. If you have anything else.
Oh, no. No, I'm all set for this evening. Thank you.
Does anybody have any topics not anticipated? None. We do have a need for executive session to discuss the strategy with respect to collective bargaining, contract negotiations, or litigation if an open meeting is detrimental, has a detrimental effect on the bargaining or litigation position of the governmental body, and to conduct collective bargaining. And we will not be returning to open session. So I will be looking for a motion to enter executive session.
Correct.
I make a motion that we enter executive session.
Motion made by Heather.
Second.
Second by Becky. Vote.
Becky Charniak, aye.
Kelly Grady, aye.
Julie Mulder, aye.
Lisa Brown, aye. And we will see everyone in person who wants to come on May 5th at the high school. Thank you.
All right. See you guys in a little bit. Thank you, everyone. Have a good night.